good to hear. So, how I typically like to start off the podcast with my guests is I ask them how their journey into sports began. So, how did your coaching career begin? I think you started your licenses in the US, if I'm correct, right?
I started them in the UK actually.
Okay.
I was at university doing a degree in economics and Japanese, and just was getting a bit disillusioned with that. And just football's always been a passion, and it's one of those. If you realize you can't make it as a player, then the next option is get into coaching. So someone had suggested the idea of doing some courses with the local FA, the county FA, and I did my licenses. And the first one I did was back in 1999, and thoroughly enjoyed it and found it a great experience. And the instructor just recommended that, since I had no coaching experience, he suggested, why don't you go to America and coach out there, because you can work with different age groups over the course of a short period of time. For example, he said you could be coaching an under 8s and under 10s and under 12s on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on the weekend. So you'd get 3 different age groups over the course of a season. Whereas in the UK, probably you just get assigned one team because there wasn't that much of a shortage, let's say, of coaches. So the first year of my coaching journey, I spent 4 months in 4 months each in 3 different continents. I spent 4 months in India, 4 in the UK, and 4 in America. And just coaching at different levels of youth football, and also with professional, second division, third division team in the US, USL League, working within that setup. So I got a taste of a little bit of everything, and then that's it. You fall in love with the coaching side of it, and it's been 21 years now. Yeah.
That was really amazing. You mentioned that in the starting of your career itself, you got to coach in different continents. I'm wondering, how did that sort of nurture your ability as a coach?
It just makes you adapt. I mean, it's the advantage when I was in the UK. It was after school with young kids. It was work daily. You'd have training session followed by a game. So there was a good little simple pattern to it, but this is sort of a typical sort of after school coaching. So you don't really see much of the players afterwards on the weekends. The US was a mixture of soccer camps where you're working long hours in a way, but with a group of players for a week, and different abilities of players. Because of the nature of the work, I ended up having to do a couple of goalkeeping camps. So a specialist camp where I learned from one of the former Glasgow Rangers goalkeepers. He'd given me some tips, some sessions, and he gave me a lot of the material from the SFA. So that was a segue into doing specialist role of coaching, of goalkeeping coaching. So that was my first taste of that. And I think India was an eye-opener too, because I got to work with some Sai and DYSS players in Bangalore. Found out years later, two of them actually went on to play for India, and actually coached both of them I signed later on at Bengaluru. So sort of football has these strange journeys as well, where you see kids at a youth level and then you see them later in a professional level. So each one had its own sort of advantages, disadvantages, and challenges. So
nice. So before we get into like coaching a senior club, I want to know how did coaching those under 9s, those under 11s that you mentioned, how did that sort of give you the confidence to like make mistakes at that level, so that when you reach the senior level, you're more experienced, so that by the time you had come to India, you had already gone through the initial mistakes that you would have made initially, but you got past that through the academy stage, right?
To an extent, yeah. And then, yes, no, it's not really mistakes, because you're coaching, you keep evolving and you keep learning about what works, what doesn't work. When you're coaching the younger players, typically you're looking at, you need to just instill the basics into them. And then as you coach, so in the same week, if you've got an under 8 team and an under 10 and an under 12, sometimes you start looking, as coaches, you look at your under 12s or 14s and you think, these kids don't have certain things which should have been taught already. So you obviously can't go back in their life and teach those younger. But you start working on those things with your younger age group teams, saying, let's put these basics in, even if it's simple things like why can't we teach a wall pass at the age of 9 to kids, so that when they get to this level, you can work on a bit more advanced things with them. So there's little bits like that where you learn from what's age appropriate, what you can and can't do at certain ages, and you make little adjustments to your coaching. And I think that's what youth coaching is about, is making adjustments and seeing what works, what doesn't work for yourself. So